So
Okay.
hello, this is the SIG Storage Volume Populators weekly meeting. We have a short list of attendees today. It's just me and Sheng. But the good news is we were able to get API reviewers to approve the KEP last week. We got PRR reviewers to approve the updated version of it. The important thing for people to know is that the Tim in particular was not satisfied with our original approach to backwards compatibility. Even though everyone agrees that like there is no way someone could intend to want the old behavior that the data source field has, where if you put garbage into it, it just gets ignored. The API team is taken an absolutist stance to backwards compatibility, and so they don't want to even have the possibility of breaking anything. So Tim proposed a different way of sort of getting around this problem while still arriving at a fairly clean API in the long run, which is to, over time, to deprecate the existing data source field and replace it with a new one called data source ref that that basically never ignores user input. You either will get an error or it will accept the data source. And then we have to do a bunch of work inside Kube API server to actually to implement this. So for reference here, I wanted to show that the original two PRs that we had were both closed without merging. One of these was just going to bump the volume populators feature to beta, and the other one was going to split out a separate KEP to deal with the backwards incompatible change. And that's where sort of all the discussion happened. So on this, I think it was 2552 link, there was a long discussion with the API reviewers, and we went over a couple different proposals, option 1, option 2, option 3. We ended up choosing option 3, but all of these threads are here for for people to go back and look at the history of how we made the decision. So yeah, anything we did was going to sort of leave some cruft in the API in the long term, and we decided that this was sort of the cleanest way to do it. I ended up creating 2 more PRs that were the ones that were actually merged. One of these was basically a rewrite of the original volume populators KEP I changed all the language to talk about this new data source ref field, and talked about, using, doing that conversion as part of this KEP. So we will use the same feature gate, the any volume data source feature gate, to control this new data source ref field, and it will be alpha in 122 because we can't jump straight to beta with a new field. We have to go through a whole another release of alpha. But I think that everyone is sort of okay with this plan. And and then the other KEP that merged was just the fix, because I failed to set things from beta back to alpha correctly, and so it was not being tracked, and we had to file a second PR to do that. That's what the 2742 is. So that's in, and that means in the 122 timeframe, I'm going to be implementing this data source ref field, and I just wanted to sort of talk about it in more detail. If you wanted to, we could talk about
I
it.
think we should actually bring this up in tomorrow's data protection working group meeting.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
I don't want people to get panic because because when I saw this one, right, it was a Thursday night, very late. I was like, what? Deprecating their data source. I didn't even know it. My God.
It's actually it's going to be a high impact change, but it will take many releases to
right. But we did say that we will never remove it. So then
right.
at least
Yeah,
that part. Yeah. So
can,
I mean, and maybe after many years, people don't care about it anymore. Then we can talk about it. But before that, we don't even want to remove that, right? So, and also we want to wait until data source ref is GA before we start to print out those deprecation message. Yeah, so we definitely want to give people enough time.
Here's how I was gonna present it. So in 122, we introduced this new field as alpha behind the existing feature gate. In 123, we would promote it to beta, so it would by default be on and people would see it, but everyone would continue using the existing data source field. In 124, assuming we don't have any problems, we would promote it to GA, and at that point, we would deprecate data source. It would continue to work exactly how it does, but if you used it with 124 or later, you would get a deprecation warning. And then starting with either 124 or 125, I'm not sure when we would do this, we would probably update the external provisioner sidecar to start consuming the data source ref field instead of the data source
Well,
field.
it should handle both.
Well,
Because we say that we will never remove it. Yeah, we say that we
no,
will never remove it. So we never
well,
remove it, meaning it will always work, because otherwise.
right, but the backwards compatibility is meant to be implemented in the Kubernetes API server. So other clients that continue to use data source will work fine.
Right, but we want the external provisioner, that's the important one. We want that one to always work with data source.
Right, but so I
so it should handle both.
No, the way it'll work is if a user creates a PVC with a data source, the Kubernetes admission hooks will copy the contents of data source to data source ref, so that anyone using data source ref will see the correct.
Oh, you're saying that it's okay. They can continue to use data source? No.
What I'm saying is, yeah, so we kind of have to go over the proposal in more detail.
Okay, there is a okay, so there is
and I'm happy to spell
conversion,
this out again.
Right? There's a convert. Okay,
yeah,
well, I just want to make sure that, okay, let's don't talk about external. So let's say even if we change external provisioner to use the ref, people can continue to use the data source field, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. That just want to make sure that part is clear. Otherwise,
and older sidecars that are using the data source field will continue to work fine. But
yeah,
like there will come a time when once we promote this new field to GA and once we've officially deprecated the old field, we will want to stop documenting it. We'll want to tell people, please don't use
just
it
for new user, go use this one, but the old one will still work basically.
And it will still work, but you'll be getting deprecation warning.
Yeah, you get that warning. Yeah, okay.
We will
actually, I think this is actually a very good topic to talk about because I don't want people to get panic about this. The GA feature, we can't just people think, oh my God, we're GA now. You are making us make a change again. Yeah, we need to just like write down clearly exactly, like
okay, so I can go into detail on what the plan is, and yeah, so the crucial part is it's these this detail for option 3 is that regardless of which field the end user uses, the server will synchronize both of the fields so they have compatible content.
So basically, even like in the future, even if they don't change it, we basically said we will never remove it, so it will always work. It's just we don't promote it anymore.
Right.
So like secretly work.
So if someone creates a PVC that has a data source that points to a snapshot, the API server will accept that, but it will copy the name of the snapshot in the data source ref field.
But the deprecation message is pretty annoying because actually user will see that if someone actually use the kubectl, they will see that. But of course, if it's like a backup software, then it's kind of in the logs, right? So are they in the logs? Yeah, maybe they will. Yeah.
Well, actually, so now that I think about it, you'll be doing gets to PVCs and creates the PVCs. And if you do a get, I don't know how we could tell whether you were using the deprecated field or not. So maybe we couldn't provide a deprecation warning for gets and lists, which is the only thing that the sidecar will be doing anyways. But the point is
get probably not. I think you can actually specify. I have never tried that, but I believe there is a way to actually specify the version. I forgot how, but I think if you really want to do that, you can actually.
You can, but the problem
but this is not version specific.
For things that are V1, the version never changes until V2.
So can we actually we can still get data source after this?
What will happen is when you do a get, you'll see two fields. You'll see data source and you'll see data source ref. And they'll have identical contents in most situations. In some situations they won't.
This is definitely we definitely need to bring this up. This have a huge impact. That was why I was actually a panic. Like on Thursday, I'm like, what? You guys make such huge change. I didn't even know. Even like I saw that by accident. My goodness.
So
I didn't know that. Initially, I thought it's something else. It suddenly become that. Okay.
Tim was emphatic that like this is the right way to evolve an API to avoid breakage. So yeah, it seems, it seems weird to have basically two fields that have the same contents and they get copied from each other. But but it's the only way that we can.
I need to give Xiangqian a heads up. He's going to be shocked too.
Well, but we
Yesterday,
have
see, Jean was also like, "What?"
we have like a year to cope with
Well,
this,
yeah, well,
right?
well,
Because it's
since
going to be 4 months before it's even alpha,
yeah,
and then it'll
yeah,
be four
well,
more
you're
months of
well,
beta, and then in
it's
4 months after
a little
that it'll be
different because
GA.
you're trying to get this cab merge, right? So, but for Changjiang, because since we are like the owner of the volume snapshot feature, so we are like, oh my god, what is happening? But I understand,
Well,
I understand that the team's concern and all of this.
I
We
mean,
just want to make sure.
we can still have conversations and we can still convince Tim that he's wrong, and we can try to go a different direction. I mean, no code is
No,
merged
I
yet.
don't think it's going to happen anymore. No, I think
Yeah.
yeah, he's very happy with this decision.
Tim is.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the key is that although the API server will continue to return the data source field basically forever, and you could specify it in newly created PVCs, the idea will be that the documentation will only ever mention data source ref, and it'll say, put your
But that is
snapshot in
after
the
it's
data.
GA, right?
Huh?
It's not in it. When it's alpha, we're not going to do that. When it's alpha, you still will see both.
Right. This is a year from now. So next
Okay.
summer,
Yeah,
May
okay. Yeah,
2022,
so okay.
we'll be
Definitely I think this is definitely a good topic we can talk about it.
okay.
And yeah.
But yeah, so the important thing is just to realize that like the API server will be performing all this backwards compatibility enforcement, so that and there's a list of cases where if you specify one and you leave the other blank, if it's valid, it'll copy it over from either from data source to data source ref or from data source ref back to data source. If you leave them both blank, that's okay. If you fill in both fields, that's a weird thing to do, but we'll still accept it if the contents are identical. Um, but then there's going to be a bunch of error cases where if you put like one data source in one field and a different data source in the other field, we'll have to reject that request because it won't make any sense. If you put invalid contents in just the data source field, you will get the legacy behavior, which is we'll drop it. We'll drop it and we'll act like you didn't ask for any data source at all. But if you put some invalid data source in the data source ref field, then it will either get rejected as an invalid request or it will get accepted, and then you'll have a PVC with the data source in it that may never bind. And that would be, again, working as designed. If you put garbage in the data source field, you're not going to get a PVC out the other end, and that's when the volume data source validator controller would be sending you events saying like, hey, this PVC is not going to bind because there's no populator for the data source that you've specified, and that should work too. But yeah, it's going to be a long road to go through 3 releases to get this new field to sort of become the standard. And then starting like a year from now, yeah, we would only document the data source ref field and tell everyone this is what you should be using, and ignore that old data source field that's still there, but nobody should be using it. It's just for backwards compatibility with stuff written before 2022. And Tim thinks that's the cleanest sort of long-term situation to end up in. The other thing we could have done is we could have added like a new Boolean field that would say like, give me the allow new data sources or something, or allow populator data sources. That could have changed the semantic for the existing field. But the problem is we would have to drag around that new Boolean forever in the API. And Tim thought that was ugly. So having an entirely new field and deprecating the old one is cleaner, even though it results in having 2 copies of everything for forever.
Yeah.
You just ignore one of them.
And Jordan was eventually also okay as long as I didn't follow this entire conversation on this particular cap.
Jordan did some historical analysis, and it was interesting what he came up with. So I'll show it to you right here. Scrolling back. What the heck? Let me just find Jordan's comment. Did he delete it?
It's probably just sometimes I think it's kind of collapsed. You don't see the old ones. Maybe you see this hidden. Maybe.
Oh, it's got hidden. Yeah, maybe is it stuck in the hidden area? Here it is. Okay. Jordan said, when spelunking for my own benefit for any curious onlookers. So he looked through 112, 113, 114. And then he says in 115, something got weird, where the feature enablement logic started taking into account user provided field values to decide if the data should be preserved. And he went on to say the logic should preserve data source field if any feature that uses the field is enabled, regardless of what the user specified. And as one of these features went GA, looks like PVC data source went GA in 118, the logic to drop values from that field should have been removed. So I think
So
that
it's saying that we didn't remove those.
yeah, the consensus is that like a mistake was made back in 118 or earlier with how the data source field was doing its validation. And we can't just go back and fix it because someone could be depending on the behavior that actually emerged. And I don't know how it, I don't know which change it was or who did it. And I don't think it's important to go hunt down, you know, the culprit. But yeah, like I think according to Jordan, like we should have done things differently back in either 115 or 118, but now
Okay.
because we are where we are, the only path forward is to accept the
So
existing
he's saying
behavior.
like this is like traditionally that's how you do it. You accept this, and then is this like a pattern, regular pattern? Like you accept
I don't,
this.
I would like to, yeah, I'd like to go back to the beginning and understand
Yeah, I
what would
don't know
have been
why
the
it
ideal way
was
to
there
do
before.
this.
That I don't remember.
I mean, I do understand that
I-
for new alpha fields, like you need a way to roll them back, so that it, you know, if people start using the field and then you change it or something, you need a way to sort of zero out what was there, so you can basically back out the change and say no, we're not doing this anymore. And I think with the data source field, when the it was, I forget if it was snapshots or the PVC data source that was done first, but
no, it is snapshot. You see,
it
if
was
you look at
snapshots.
the Jordan's history here,
Yeah.
that's yeah. So this data source field was added when we introduced the snapshot support, but because the
Okay.
clone feature kind of progressed so quickly, so kind of people forgot snapshot was there first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
snapshot was there first, and then what is this? Is that in 1.14? Force field is cleared. True, what is it? Is that in 1.14 when this happens?
I
That's
think
what,
he might have meant the PVC volume
yeah.
PVC data source. He might have made a typo right here.
Okay.
But the point is that like the field clearing behavior was only supposed to be an aspect of like feature gating
Mhm.
when the field was disabled or something. You should have gotten this behavior. But when the feature was enabled, especially by a yeah, if any feature that uses the field is enabled, then it shouldn't have been preserved. So I think the problem is when stuff started going beta, we should have stopped dropping the disabled fields if the feature gates were turned on, and we should have just thrown errors. But somehow it slipped through, and we continued dropping invalid data sources. Um,
Mhm.
and that's why we got into the situation now where like you could have put other stuff in there, and of course it gets dropped, and you could end up relying on that behavior. And my original proposal from last two releases would have started giving you a non-functional PVC, and that would be a regression in functionality. So that's what they didn't like.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think Jordan did a good analysis of the history. I'm going to go deeper eventually and figure out what would have been the right way to do it, so that if we ever have to do something like this again, I'll understand what the path forward is. And we can sort
Yeah,
of
so I still don't understand why there's a need to uh, accept this source in the beginning, this unsupported source. So I'm still not clear, like exactly when
well,
that got in.
I think
114?
I think the problem is that if you know when the feature when the field was added, if the feature gate was turned off and someone created a PVC and they specified like a snapshot data source, like we can't save their snapshot data source because the feature gate is turned off. So the right thing to do is just drop it as if they didn't put anything in there and give them an empty volume. And similar with the PVC data source, if the feature gate is alpha or turned off, then and they specify a PVC, like you should drop it. The thing is, once the feature gate went to beta or someone flipped it on, we should not have been dropping anything in these fields, I think. we should either have been giving you an error if you specified something invalid or accepting it, but we shouldn't have been dropping it when the thing was in beta. And then once the fields went GA, like we should have removed the logic to drop invalid contents completely, because we would never want to do that. You always should have gotten an error or so the idea is that the dropping of the invalid data source should have been a temporary solution while the fields were alpha, and it should have gone away earlier than it did, but it just persisted, and we ended up changing it and modifying it. And I think you touched some of this code. What's his name? John Griffith.
John, and then
John
you.
touched
So
some of this code.
for several people, yeah.
Yeah, I know I touched some of this code when I was adding the Populator stuff, and I think some other people may have touched it. And I think everyone was just sort of trying to not disturb things.
Yeah,
And we didn't have an API reviewer telling us like, no, we're doing it wrong.
yeah, we actually, maybe like the team may not have looked at this code at the end, because in the beginning, I know that he reviewed the code in the very beginning.
Okay. Yeah.
But later on, I don't think so.
I think we needed attention as we moved from alpha to beta and from beta to GA, and maybe we didn't get the attention in those phases. So so in any case, I mean, now that we've sort of done a postmortem and got to the bottom of what's going on, we have this new plan, and I can present. So is tomorrow the
yeah,
is that a
yeah,
protection
I can add
okay.
this one there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can prepare like a slide or a little document that sort of outlines what the change is going to look like,
Okay.
and roll it out. And I guess that the one thing that's not clear to me, so optimistically, it's alpha in 122, beta in 123, GA in 124, which is a year from now. So next April or whatever, it could be GA. And then it's not clear to me if we would immediately push a new sidecar that used the new GA field, or if we would wait a whole release before doing that. Because what will happen is, let's say next April this is GA, and we release a new sidecar, external provisioner 4.0 or whatever the next version. I don't know what version we're on with, but some rev of external provisioner, like that external provisioner will not be compatible with older versions of Kubernetes. It'll have like a dependency on 124 when this feature became GA. So like that'll sort of be the
breaking
drawback
change,
of,
basically.
well, it's
right.
I guess it's kind of a breaking change, but it's basically dealing with the deprecation. It's not using the deprecated field and using the new supported field, but that means that you can't use it on older versions because you can only use it at the point when the field became GA. So I mean, we do that all the time with our sidecars. We have minimum Kubernetes versions, and we say for this sidecar, you must run with Kubernetes, 124 or later. And so we'll just have to document that and be sure that vendors understand the version dependency when we eventually make this sidecar. And that's why I'm saying we might do it in April, or we might do it in August, or
yeah, we need
year.
more time if since those are already GA and people are already dependent on that, right? So suddenly we'll introduce.
Well, but the old sidecars just, so this is one of the things that confuses me a little bit. Like with the snapshotter, we very aggressively move forward with snapshotter v3, snapshotter v4. Every time we made a change to Kubernetes to move snapshots to beta and then to GA, we kept releasing the new snapshotters immediately. And so and you can still use it, but some people are still shipping snapshot
but
v2, right?
They don't have to. I mean, unless they want to upgrade to, let's say when we go GA, right? Unless they want to upgrade to that, they don't have to change their code. So I'm just saying, like, because the backup vendors there, if they're only using only snapshot, they may not want to go take this data source change, right? So,
but this isn't, no, that this has nothing to do with backup vendors. This is for CSI plugin providers. So like when a vendor ships a CSI plugin, they have to decide which sidecar to bundle with it. And I think the latest provisioner is v2. So like if you're running Kubernetes 123 or earlier, you will have to use provisioner v2. But if you're running v20 or 124, you could ship external provisioner 3.0 with that would use the new field, and that's just a question of what the CSI
Yeah, we actually
plugin
just talk
runs.
about we should actually reduce the number of time that we are bumping the major release. We're actually bumping that too frequently.
Well, yeah, I wanted to understand what the logic there was too, but clearly there will be some release of the external provisioner that will have a minimum Kubernetes version of 124. And for anyone who wants to run on an older version than 124, they'll have to continue running an older version of Sidecar. So we could end up having a, like we do with the snapshot, where you have two different major versions that are being maintained at the same time, and we have to do bug fix backports and all that. You could end up briefly in that situation with the external provisioner. Yeah, so this actually reminds me of a question. This is sort of unrelated to data pipelators, but since you're here, I'll ask you. So the external snapshotter v3, is that maintained for anyone? Is there a
It's actually,
situation?
yeah, we actually recently cut a release, a minor release. I don't know if you noticed that.
Okay, but does that mean
and then the reason, well, actually, I didn't want to do that. I think you were in those CSI meetings, had some discussion there, because yeah, I think there was some problems. No, I shouldn't say some problems. There were some metrics related enhancement that are not in the 3.x release.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the reason. But then those are like kind of like new features. You can't really just like backport bugs. So that's why we actually we actually cut a minor release, which is a little weird. We cut it on top of the 3.0. Which
like
is kind of on you, but that's like
an
exception, because we were saying the time between this two major releases are so close. It's like 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we made an exception, and also because this is like metrics, those are kind of required, right, for production readiness and all of that. We don't have that.
I think I missed the specific meeting, but
yeah, it's actually now it's actually even in the docs. If you go look at the CSR Driver Docks, we actually added those there because this was not there before. So that's why we had all of those discussions. And because they initially said we can't backport this, they want to backport. I said no, you can't backport this. It's not a bug fix. We're already on 4.0, so we can't go back. To backport those features in 3 or something, right? So then we had those decisions. Okay, this is like exception. You really don't do that. But if it's a so for bug fixes, I think we also have some. I think you should. Okay, let me actually find that doc. You should actually go read that doc. We should make sure that doc is clear, and then I think we should really make sure that we are following that.
Well, what I'm trying to understand is, are we now maintaining 3 separate releases of snapshot?
So that's something that we try to avoid. I think we have some language here saying that what do we want to support, what do we don't.
Let me stop sharing so you can share.
Okay, let's see. Here. Yeah, so this is in Driver Docks. You take a look of this. So if anything is not clear, we can enhance the stock, I think. I want to make sure that we actually, when we make decisions on backport and cut releases, we actually follow the doc rather than kind of, every time we do things is not consistent, right? So I want to make sure it's consistent. Okay, so let's see, it says, I don't remember, well, did we add those, but yes, it should be here, basically saying that, okay, here, to minimize it, like this paragraph, let's read this one. Minimize the number of branches in your support. Okay, so we do not want to, this is actually added. Okay, this paragraph is added because we did cut a minor version on an older major. So, and then we make exceptions only if the previous version is as long as time. Right, so okay, so we say the time between the previous major version and the current major version is under 6 months. And also, we also look at the production readiness requirements. So that's exactly why we cut this 3.1 minor release on top of 3.0. even that is like after we cut 4.0, it's because the time between the major release are just so close.
But
So
are we
we
still
don't.
doing bug fix releases of
So we try not to.
2.x?
So we try not to maintain that many. So we try only like maintain 2 major releases or like 2 minor releases. However, we also look at like how long, like how soon we're releasing the new release, the new major release, right? So in this case, the snapshotter case, we're just releasing the major release too frequently. So between 3.0 and 4.0, it was like 3 months. So that's why we're saying, okay, we're making this exception if the 2 major release are released within 6 months. And then we also look at the reasoning, right? So what do we want to back? If you just want to backport a real bug fix, that should be fine. But here we're talking about backport a feature.
Right,
Feature,
okay,
of course, is not allowed.
So this is aimed at our internal decision making for the community, like the kinds
Yeah,
of
this is
questions.
for the reasoning, why we actually cut it. This is because this is like unusual. Usually, if you let's say if we cut let's say we just cut 4.1, right? So at this point, we should only do 4.1 dot something. We should not be going back.
Right.
That's the regular normal. We don't want to make it a normal, like we keep going back. That's just a maintenance nightmare. So we say we don't want to do that. But in this
Here's the
case,
question that I get from my coworkers, which is, okay, so we have external snapshot of 2.x and 3.x and 4.x. Like, for which Kubernetes version should I be using 2.x, and for which Kubernetes version
I
should I be
think
using
those should be in the
3.x?
docs. Okay. I know there was some confusion, but I believe okay, so I think I made some changes. I don't know if that's clear now. Because for every release, if you go look, okay, let me see if we had this one fixed. All right. Oh, this one is not really talking about so yeah, so normally if you go to look at the releases, right, it actually should show the versions. Another place to look is this doc, but sometimes I found the problem is that we're not updating the docs. So let me see if we have this one up to date. So yeah, I think we need to clean up this a little bit. This is like has too many older, my God. Let's look at how old it is. But this one has like I hope this one has a maximum version. Okay, this one has the maximum version. Yeah, so we need to add like maximum version for those, for like, for example, for 2.1, right? I don't think we want to keep maintaining that anymore.
Yeah, so if I just look at this table, and I think you're right, we need to add more rows to this table, but the difference between V303 and V214, it's there's no
Oh, you're
difference
saying the
as far as
minimum
this table.
Kubernetes version.
Yeah, either one is going to run on 117, and
Right, that's a minimum.
so
That's a minimum recommended. Yeah, that was because this is our all beta version. That's the reason, right? Because we didn't add anything in Kubernetes, right? There were only 3 times we make changes in Kubernetes. One is when it was first 1.12, when it's alpha. The second time is I don't know what is this 1.14 recommended. I don't remember what was this one. Second time when it went beta in 1.17. And then it's 1.20 that is GA, right? So there's only 3 times we're making changes in Kubernetes. I actually need to check. I don't know what is this 1.14 recommended. Recommended version is 1.14. This is a little strange.
probably some leader election feature that it depends on.
Oh, okay, maybe okay.
Because there are other Kubernetes features that the sidecars can depend on.
Sure, yeah, makes sense. Okay, yeah. So if you look at this release, 1.12, 1.17, 1.20, because that's alpha, beta, and GA. So that's why we have those.
So if I have a customer who's running Kubernetes 117, would we give him the 2.1.4 sidecar?
No, you
the
want to give him the
3.0.3
latest,
sidecar?
right? You want to give him the latest if it's a new customer.
No. If he has Kubernetes 117, I can't give him snapshot or 4.0.
Oh, not 4.0.
Right?
No. I'm talking
Not
about. I thought you were
compatible.
talking about 1.17. Then that's a 3. This is 3.4.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying you would give him the 3.x?
I would.
Variant.
Yeah, I would give him the latest. Right. I think we had the 3.1 now. Should give him.
So my question was like, why were we still maintaining the 2.1?
Yeah, I think this one we need to update. Actually, I think that's a good point. I don't think we want to keep maintaining all of this. Some of those are like outdated. So yeah, I think we just sometimes we didn't update those tables.
Yeah. Well, and I get questions from the Trident team saying like, which sidecars which version should we use? Because it's, there's so many choices, and we
Yeah,
have a
you
matrix,
always
right?
go with the latest. Yeah, always go with the latest. It doesn't make sense for you to go back, right? If you
Well,
if you can choose between two point something and 3 point something, of course you go with the latest.
Generally, yes, but there was a period a couple months ago where like we were still backporting bug fixes to 2.1 and not backporting them to 3.0, and we were saying,
No, we
well,
should be backporting them to 3.0.
okay,
If not, then let me know which bug fix you are backporting to 2 dot something, but not 3 dot something.
okay,
Sometimes it could be like some people. Sometimes I see like some Google folks, they started submitting PRs. Maybe their customers found something in the 2 dot something because they're using it. So maybe then that's not really backported to 3 point, but it doesn't mean it should not be. Sometimes it could be that. Yeah.
It was just a conversation where we were talking about backporting stuff to 2.1, and I was like, why would we do that and not do it to 3.x? So it must have
No, you
been a
should. Yeah, if
misunderstanding.
you find something, then we probably should take a look and see. Maybe it's missing in 3
Okay.
dot whatever. Right. So
Okay,
yeah.
so as of now, everyone should either have the 3.1 or the 4.1 sidecar.
Yeah.
And we would never use
Yeah,
2.1 or
I think
3.0
I
or
need to.
4.0.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this because you can't say I don't know if we should. Maybe this one can say. Yeah, we can probably say
What we almost want is an inversion of this table that says, with the Kubernetes versions on the left and the recommended sidecar version on the right, so that for any Kubernetes version we have a community recommended sidecar version that would make it obvious which ones we think you should be using, and anything that's not in that list.
You mean like for example for 1.20, what is recommended version?
Well, we would have a table that would 1.12, 1.13, 14, 15, all the way down to 121 on the left column, and then on the right column we would say use snapshotter 1.2 and use snapshotter 3.1 and use snapshotter 4.1 for each
Yeah,
Kubernetes
I think
version.
that I believe the problem is why they have this complicated scheme, this type of thing, is because some customer may not be using all the features. I guess that's why. So that's why they have this minimum version. If you don't want to use the newer features, then you can stay lower, something like that. Sometimes you see that, especially if you have multiple sidecars right together.
Yeah, well, we want to have the latest one that will work with that version of
Yeah,
Kubernetes.
so if you look at then there it is, right? So that's one. I mean, this one we need to update. If you look at this one, this is before the 4.1 got released. So then that's 1.20 go with 4.0, right? Isn't that not clear?
Well, no, this makes sense to me, but like there's always extra subtleties. Like, yeah, you need version 1.20, but you also need that the Kubernetes distro has included the GA CRDs, right? Because nothing stops you from installing
that is
nothing
true.
stops you from installing the beta CRDs with 1.20. And if you do that, it will blow up. So like we have a check in our installer that says, not only what is the Kubernetes version, but like, is the GA CRD installed, so that we know we can use v4. Because if it's still the beta CRD,
that's why this is just says like a recommended, right? So it's not, that's why. And also, if you
but
look at this one, it's not complete. If you look at I think this will have
I
more.
figure every CSI plugin vendor has to ask these same questions, and we could just have
Yeah, I know. I also got a lot of
one
questions.
table that tells you
Yeah.
this is the official answer for everybody.
Yeah. I also got questions from like our CSI team because they are also reading the docs, but the problem is the docs are not up to date. Sometimes it's very confusing actually. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that's enough on this topic for this meeting. So I guess I will prepare something to talk tomorrow to the data protection working group about the volume populators API change, and we can give it like 10, maybe a quick 5 or 10 minutes of introduction, and then answer some questions about it and go on to another topic.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. And no one else ended up joining this whole 45 minutes, so weird.
Yeah. Yeah, people must be taking a break from
Okay.
last week.
All right. Well, thank you, Xing.
No problem. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.